Hopefully it works. All right, we are live. We'll do the 1 minute countdown. So just chill out.
Lucy, get out of there. Move this just in case.
So we're just doing the 1 minute countdown to start our broadcast of Together We Rise, Indigenous Women of Influence podcast. I'm going to start with doing a quick bio overview of Marilyn, our guest today, and then we'll get into it. So we have 4 people joining us, and more people will pop on as we begin. Happy Sunday, everyone. It's nice to see everyone joining us. Okay, we're going to get started. So we're super excited. I'm super excited to have Marilyn Jensen joining us today. Marilyn is Tlingit, and she is an Indigenous artist, advocate, speaker, educator, consultant, and she holds a BA in anthropology from the University of Alaska and a master's degree in Indigenous governance from the University of Victoria. Marilyn's passions lie within the reclamation and revitalization of ceremony, songs, culture, and everything foundational to her identity. She taught First Nations governance at the Yukon University and works closely with many Indigenous communities as a consultant focusing on wellness, governance, and cultural strengthening. Marilyn has taught important and engaging training for Yukon governments on Indigenous history, land claims, self-government, and self-determination for 20 years, and for numerous First Nation governments and organizations in countless communities. More recently, she's launched a new company called Lateral Kindness Canada, which delivers awareness and understanding around Indigenous lateral violence, offering tools and calls to reclaim kindness instead as a form of resistance. Marilyn celebrates and honors her culture by engaging in traditional dancing, singing, drumming, choreography, and storytelling with an Inland Tlingit dance group she founded and leads, the Dakhká Khwáan Dancers. In 2016, Marilyn was honored by the Governor General of Canada as a recipient of the Polar Medal for Cultural Reclamation in the North. I'm super excited to have you on today, and anyone who has ever seen you either perform with your dance group or with the workshops, they know that you are an incredible powerhouse. And so before we begin, how about you give us your cultural introduction?
Awesome. Thank you. Ganeshish Chukachūhan, Yadultin Yuhat. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Marilyn, as Aaron so eloquently introduced me, and thank you for inviting me. I'm Inland Tlingit in Dakhká Khwáan. I come from the Karkwas First Nation, and I'm Dakhká Khwáan, which is Killer Whale Crest. And I'm really happy to be here today. Very honored that you asked me, Aaron, and really, very, very happy to be able to share some of my knowledge and insight and experiences.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into it. From what I know about you, you have been incredibly blessed with both of your parents, both your mother and father. They've been a huge support and inspiration for you and the work that you do. I recognize that not every Indigenous person is as lucky to have that level of healthy family support and love. And so before I ask my question, I just wanted to acknowledge that you lost both of your parents within a year of each other, which is a really extraordinarily devastating loss. And I'm really sorry for your loss. So in terms of, in honor of your incredible mother, who was by all accounts a really immensely loving matriarch who's bestowed a ton of knowledge on you, can you share with us some of what those key teachings from her that she passed on to you?
Absolutely. So my mom, you're right. She was an absolute amazing, before her time woman that had so much foresight and so much wisdom and so much determination, to really move our nation forward. And particularly, she focused on us kids. And I remember, in my childhood, her just really being diligent and telling us, my sister and I, and all the other children who were around, that, we were important, that our culture was beautiful and strong and resilient. And, she started us dancing when we were really little. I was 2. And, her whole kind of, vision for life was essentially, really at the core of it all, was for our people to be happy again, for our people to be well, to our people to find joy in life. And really, she knew that, the secret to that was to be able to engage and to truly feel, at peace and with absolute, strength and understanding that we are beautiful and our people are noble, and that because society was telling us the exact opposite, we're bad and everything about us was wrong for the very reason that we existed. It was wrong, so her message was just so completely opposite. And she fought so hard for us. I remember her saying to me, she's like, "You are a Tlingit princess and you are smart. You are important." She used to say that to me, and I remembered because, the school system, we weren't at residential school, but still the public system could be pretty hard, harsh on us. And I remember thinking to myself, "Mom, I'm not smart," and she was like, "You are smart and you are important," so she just fought against so much, to make us know and feel and have confidence in ourselves and self-love, self-worth, all of those things were really, I think, what a huge part of her legacy was.
That's amazing. That's truly incredible. Can you tell me about one of your lowest moments, like something going on in your life where you're just like the lowest of the low, and something that you did or something you learned that helped you move forward from that place?
Yeah, I think probably one of the lowest experiences in my life was, in my early 30s, because I have anxiety disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, like many people do. And up until that point, I didn't really know what was wrong, just other than I was feeling horrible. And so I kind of had to, hit rock bottom in order to pick myself up again. And there were a number of, kind of methodologies that I engaged in. I sought out professional help with a psychologist. Healing just on a spiritual sphere was extremely important for that. It was really, kind of trying to understand my purpose, as a human being, kind of my pathway in life, and just realizing that I could overcome these really painful feelings, and just to understand. And I think that really opened up, my heart, and kind of my resolve in, trying to assist people in dealing with a lot of the emotional pain that, exists and is so prevalent in Indigenous community. So I would say that was probably my lowest point. And I had to learn a lot about myself. I had to really dig deep into my soul, to be able to understand all of this and to be able to move forward.
Do you have some tips or things that worked for you to help with the anxiety?
Yeah, there's a number of things. Definitely, exercise is probably my top number one, way to deal with anxiety. If I don't exercise, like it's just like this big black cloud starts rolling in again. Those really heavy feelings and excessive worrying, and anxiety really manifests itself physically. So it's emotional stuff, but it's really like acting up in a physical way. So exercise, being mindful of like the stress level going on around you. And also, like just for, I don't know how else to say it, but toxic people, people who just are draining, emotionally
Yeah.
draining. and who just want everything from you without that reciprocity, without
Mm-hmm.
giving back and demonstrating, unconditional love. So much of anxiety is you're trying to please everybody. You think it's your job to make everybody happy and everything perfect,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think, we've all experienced a lot of trauma just for, growing up in Indigenous community. It might not have been like, firsthand in your home, but it was just so prevalent around us. Like there's no way that you can't be impacted by that,
Yeah.
So like the more stress in your life, the higher the anxiety. And that even includes, like I'm really big on like visual beauty, and not like with myself, but just my environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a firm believer in, your environment needs to be unchaotic, if that's a word, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Your
please.
living space.
Yes, your
Yeah.
living space, your office space, your car even, like the more cluttered and unorganized around you, the more that impacts yourself emotionally and your mind
Mm-hmm.
as well, so
Yeah.
and those are just some easy things. Like some people have to, kind of walk down that path of medication and stuff like that. And that's fine, because you do need to figure out what works for you. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, luckily I've been able to manage it mainly through exercise and just trying to just decrease stress.
Yeah, those are awesome tips. I
Mhm.
remember how free I felt like after I left my marriage of 19 years and I moved out and I hardly had any belongings, like literally had nothing.
Mhm.
But
Right.
my environment was so clean and so clutter free that it like it had a whole new, I felt like a whole different type of well-being that I hadn't really felt before. I mean, part of it was with, releasing the bad relationship and getting out of there, but part of it was just having this like really clean, uncluttered environment. And ever since then, I've been very cognizant about keeping my space clutter free, because I can be a bit of a clutter bug. But yeah, it just changes your mental mindset. I mean, if you think of all the belongings that we have, everything needs a fair amount of care, or at least, time to put it away or clean it and all that stuff. So the less responsibility you have in that sense is actually very freeing mentally.
It
So I
is.
totally get that.
Mhm.
Um, so what was your reason for shifting your career out of the institutional setting? Because you were a professor at a university, like teaching at the university level. So then you moved from that into consulting and facilitation work. And what was
Mhm.
the sort of reasoning behind that?
Well, I've had like a lot of different kind of crazy career paths in my life, and I did do consulting starting, a bit over 20 years ago, with my colleague Ingrid Johnson. And so that's how we started. We really were very, very busy teaching about Indigenous culture and people and our history and all of that in government settings. And then I kind of went into like a 9 to 5. I worked at my own nation as a senior government official. I worked at the self-government secretariat, and then I kind of got, like lured into teaching at the university. So I was there for a while. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it, but in the meantime, there was just this huge request and demand and need for the lateral violence training. And
Mhm.
so, just because of demand and how meaningful and important it became, my current business partner right now, Thomas Shepard, he and I just, we just kind of said, well, this is so needed. Let's just, take that
Mhm.
plunge, jump off the cliff, and really focus on this, because the need is so important.
Okay, so the workshops, like you had the realization that the lateral kindness workshops are so needed.
Mhm.
Um, so you were the one to develop the whole program, or did you do that in tandem with your partner, or how did that come about?
Well, what happened was, so I was teaching a class called organizational community wellness. And
Mhm.
so, of course, we talked about lateral violence in that class. And so a lot of my students at Yukon University were already working professionals.
Hmm.
most of them, in the First Nation governments up here, because we have self-government agreements. So we don't, like our organizations aren't band offices, they're governments now. And so one of the nations here in Whitehorse, Khwáan Dancers First Nation, they called me in. They're like, "Hey, Marilyn, can you come in? We just want to talk to you." So I go there. And so there were some of these former students who were in really high, roles in the government. I think the chief was there, and some elders, and they were like, like they literally said, like, we totally understand and own that we have a lateral violence problem in our community, and we're coming into an election, and that is a horrible time for us, just like any community, like
there's so many divisions and fractures and drama, and
things get really ugly. And so they just said, we wanted to see if you would be able to and willing to teach everyone, the whole staff, leadership, the citizens, the members of our community, the youth, elders, like everybody. And I was like, whoa. So in the meantime, my colleague and I, Thomas, were, kind of doing things here and there. We worked together in my nation, Carquois First Nation. And so I said, can someone help me? Because this is kind of a big job, right? And they were like, sure, absolutely, whatever you want. So anyway, I drugged Thomas into this, and I'm like, Thomas, do you want to help me teach about lateral violence? And he's like, what's lateral violence?
Because he's not Indigenous, right?
No, he's not Indigenous.
Every Indigenous person has faced this on one level or another.
But once we started defining it and making it, more clear, he's like, oh yeah, I get it. And I asked him, because he worked with me in my nation. I'm like, so did you notice this dynamic? And he was like, yeah, totally. But I didn't know what it was, it was kind of weird. And that's how most people are. It's like, we know this crazy dynamic is there, but for a long time, nobody called it out or named it. Right. It was just like, everyone's mean all the time, and hurtful. So anyway, that's how it all started. And then from there, it just really, really, kind of built momentum, because all of the communities around the Yukon were, just stepping up and saying, yeah, we do have this problem too. We do have this problem, so we've been really busy in the Yukon since then. And now we're starting to, we went to Alert Bay a couple of years ago, which was amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to go to that, but we had another commitment I really wanted to attend.
Well, I think, hopefully we'll be able to come, into BC again. So we've been a few other places in Canada. Next week, we're going to Newfoundland
awesome.
To work with the Halapu First Nation. So that's cool. Yeah, it's been really great.
So when I think I know that this work is so needed, and it's we really need to start working on transforming our communities to, bring back that sense of community that was lost through colonization. But part of me is still very skeptical about whether or not people can change, in the back of my head, I'm always kind of a bit like, do jealous people really change? Does their behavior change? So how about you tell us some of the stories of transformation that you've encountered by facilitating the workshops?
Right. Well, I think one of the really profound, examples that we see all the time, is, we come in, we really kind of set the space. We ground ourselves, in Indigenous culture and value. Thomas's perspective is, I'm an ally. I'm just a friend. I'm just here. I'm not here to tell anyone what to do, or, I'm just here helping Marilyn. I pack around all our stuff, and he does some facilitation too, and teaching, which is great. He has a master's in social work, so he's really great at explaining, what's going on with people. What's going on with people when people exhibit these behaviors, because that's really the core of it. It all kind of comes down to hurting people. So we talk very honestly, very, candidly about, what does this hurt look like? What is this thing that people are packing around, in our communities, and why are they compelled to, to expel that pain and direct it at other people? Because that's essentially what it all comes down to, oppressed people who belong to the same group of, the same circle, They have all of these really painful emotions, like shame. Shame is a really, really fundamental, complicated, emotion that many people have. It's so easy for us to go there. And so, with no tools or a ways of dealing with it in a healthy way. Like when I talked about anxiety, I think that's kind of a good example of, what that looks like. And I learned that, I need to literally exercise to release, the pain from myself. And so instead of, doing healthy ways of doing that, people just direct that at each other. And so it's emotional pain, it exists on that emotional violence level. And so, when we explain all this, sometimes I literally see people like just going, holy crap. So many people have said to us, time and time again, and, just exhibiting such trust and vulnerability when they're like, I do lateral violence. I do this. And I didn't even realize I was doing this. And I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to be this, and so I think people are really, like there's such a, a really genuine and authentic desire to change behavior. And once it's all laid out and once we've like thrown it in there in the middle of the workshop and we've all had a chance to deconstruct it and really look at it from like a place of not blaming and all of that, because it's so easy just to be like, oh my God, so-and-so's just a jerk. And they're always, just giving everyone the dirty looks and all of that, kind of thing, calling us down, trying to sabotage and things like that. But, for myself, it's like I own that I have done lateral violence to people. I have definitely been a victim of lateral violence and I've witnessed it my whole life.
Yeah.
And, and so everyone says that, like every single person that, takes the workshop in the communities is like, yep, yeah, I totally get it. I understand what you mean now. I understand what we're talking about now.
So you're able to sort of facilitate their having more self-awareness around their own behaviors and recognizing that they are actually acting in a way that they don't want to be that way. So
right.
So people actually do walk away from it saying, okay, I need to change.
Yeah, people so a lot of people will walk away saying I need to change, and then kind of further to that, it's like we need to change our community as well. We need to change behavior patterns and what has become normalized in our community, because we also recognize that it really has become normalized.
It has,
But when we, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, I worked in an Indigenous nonprofit for just about 10 years, and it was so rampant in that environment. Like, we had so much of it, and a lot of it has to be shifted from the organization itself. Like, you can't just work with certain individuals. It has to literally become a part of the culture of the organization, but that never happened. I left before there was any major change.
Right.
I don't know if there is change, to be honest. I just got burnt out of it. So
yeah. And that's definitely an impact of lateral violence, is that people are just exhausted. People tell us all the time, like, I'm just tired and exhausted and stressed out, and we even heard people say, I drive up to the building that I work at, like the band office or whatever it is, in the Indigenous organization, and I literally feel like throwing up because of stress and fear and just dealing with basically lateral violence is emotional violence. It's emotional abuse, really, and when people are just dealing with it constantly, day in, day out, it takes a toll. They can become sick or they leave. They just become completely disillusioned and angry with their group, which comes down to community, family, clan, whatever it is. And so there's a lot of people who have left their role, in the community, and we lose tremendous capacity and resources. We need our people, we need our people in our communities.
So if you're working with an Indigenous organization, what are the sort of parameters that you try to set up to create a healthier workspace? Like, how do you combat it in the workplace?
Well, we talk a lot about preparing and having a plan, because, like, I'll just kind of set up a scenario here. And we do have scenarios. So, like, really, Thomas and I have really focused on what we call like exposure therapy, right? And I know that's not our term, but basically we enact a lot of lateral violence. So we create the safe place, the safe space in the workshop, where everyone can be assured we're not going to blame or shame. We can have some really honest discussions about what this is. And so we start enacting scenarios, lateral violence scenarios. And one of them is what we refer to as the dump and run. And so that's like, we're having a meeting, so I'm in my community, we're having a meeting. And this, before I go any further, this happens in everyone's community. Every place we've been, everyone's like, yep, this happened. True. So someone comes in and like comes in late, slams the door, starts throwing stuff around, and then starts, like being very aggressive, either hollering or, just speaking really loudly and aggressively, and, like kind of accusing everybody and being really negative, and then they leave, right? Like they don't stick around to, follow through or, talk about their concerns or whatever it is. It's just, we call it the dump and run, so we bring these in, we start acting them out, we start deconstructing them, and then we apply some tools. So like the first tool is, what's our plan? What's our community's plan? Because invariably this happens every time we have a meeting, so are we ready this time? Or are we all just going to like freeze like deer in headlights, and it just happens and then they leave? And, so what are we going to do? We start, the community or the people who are in that particular workshop start, like brainstorming some really tangible, good ways of dealing with this. Okay, so who's going to intervene and shut that down? Who can do that? Because that's basically what we're saying, is that we have to address it, because mostly we don't. It just happens. Everyone feels like crap, and then people learn. And this is how that behavior becomes normalized, because we don't address it.
Exactly.
And so then we figure out, how do we address it in a good, kind way where we are compassionate, but yet we're strong with boundaries. So it's like, hey, so-and-so, I love you, nephew, but you can't scream at us. But no, there's no new houses. You can't scream at us. But no one's doing it. You can't scream at us. So it's like the boundary. And
totally.
More and more we like kind of, we call it loving strength, because we're trying to separate the behavior from the human being, because we've learned that, they're doing these things because they've got this tremendous pain. But despite, but still, just because there's pain, it doesn't mean they can be abusive to everybody else. Right. So we have to figure out how to shut that down in a way that doesn't further, make them feel disrespected and, and all, and shamed and all of that. So basically, we kind of really get into it and figure out some tools. And then so people feel like, okay, I've got a few things in my own tool belt, but also we've got like some strategy for the community, in general, on how we can, like really tackle this and try to move forward.
Yeah. Being loving, caring, but having the boundary, like it's really hard to have a firm boundary, but do it in a way that's not harsh and not going to alienate the person further. So that's a tricky skill to learn, but it's definitely a good life skill to be able to have.
It is. Yeah.
It makes me think, like, I'm thinking about how I learned this thing about not bowing down to the lowest common denominator. So how you have a plan, you want to do something great in your community, and all these negative people will come in, and it's like kind of like crab in the bucket syndrome, but it's like they don't want things to progress or, for a good thing to happen. But it's like literally just the smallest percentage of people that create just the biggest amount of negativity that will essentially just shut a whole positive project or, whatever the thing is that you're working on. Just that, one or two people can have enough negativity towards it to shut the entire thing down. And then I took this workshop one time, and the facilitator was saying, we have to just learn how to say, here's all of us in this room, and we all want this thing to go forward. It has all these benefits. And so we hear you, we hear your concerns, but we don't agree, and we're just going to keep moving forward. And just to be able to like acknowledge the person, acknowledge their concerns, but then not give them any more space, because some people just don't want change, or they just don't want progress, or they just don't want the positive thing to happen for whatever their reason is. And so he called it like not bowing down to the lowest common denominator. And I was like, that makes so much sense, because there's so many amazing projects that can happen in our communities that get shut down for no good reason. And it's like, what, why does one or two people get to be the negative voice for the entire community when they, you know, the vast amount of the community want to see the change? So I feel like that's a lot of similarities to what the kind of work that you're doing.
Right. Yeah, that is definitely one of the ways that lateral violence is manifested. We call it sabotaging, right?
Yeah.
And so, essentially, it's like literally, it's, it comes down to, oh, look, those youth are doing something really good. I'm going to go over there and wreck it.
Yeah.
And not even understand them, the person that's, perpetrating this, not even understanding themselves. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Not having, I guess just work through their own stuff to realize, like, I'm so unhappy and I have so much pain that I can't stand to see any other person happy or any other success around me. So what I'm going to do is wreck it. Right. And so, yeah, we do need to have those boundaries where we say, no, actually, we're not going to let you hijack this. Right. Like, this is a good thing. And, us as individuals having the confidence and, the strength in ourselves to know, okay, this aligns with my own values. I know this is good. There's absolutely no reason for a couple of hecklers out there in the stands that aren't even in here in the arena.
Because they're always there, no matter what you're doing, whether you're doing amazing cultural things or whatever, there's always people who will criticize for just no justifiable reason.
Yeah, totally. Everything is wrong, everything is bad, and so it truly is a reflection of what's going on inside themselves, right?
So what is your ultimate goal? What do you hope to achieve with your work overall?
Well, I really do, hope that this really addresses a fundamental, challenge in our Indigenous community. And I really believe it does, because, just like we talked about so much, so many good initiatives, so many people are just really, held back by lateral violence. I truly believe it's probably the biggest, struggle challenge we have in Indigenous community. So, like, the work really moves me. It's very meaningful. It allows me to be, what I often refer to as like right out there in the trenches with our people doing hard stuff, so, and witnessing people displaying so much, courage, courage in having the vulnerability to say, I do this and it's in our community and I want to fix it. Right. Like, it really takes a lot of vulnerability, but time and time again, we see people stepping out, and stepping out of that comfort zone and really trying to address it. So we know it's a lot, it's a big shift. It's a huge shift because, we've been doing this for decades and decades and decades. When we kind of start trying to consider the source of it, because we know that lateral violence does not align at all with our own traditional teachings. No one in the right mind, from our ancestors or even just grandparents and not that long ago, and a lot of people today would ever go into a space and start screaming at people. They never do that. It's just, so really what this is all about, it all comes down to reclamation, of who we really are. And I always say that we always start off, with me saying, kind of saying our people are beautiful and our people are strong, and we already know what to do for this problem. All it is reclaiming who we really are, and trying to walk with those teachings, and those guidelines. We already have our own guidelines, our own protocols, and our own rules, so to speak. We just have to reclaim them again, because in my community, they became hazy, through all of this, disruption. culture and language and everything else. Everything about us was disrupted. Of course, some of those rules are a bit hazy. One time, this one lady said she actually told Thomas this, and Thomas shared it with me because we are always, really open to feedback for the workshop. She said, I really liked the workshop. It was great, but I don't know how to be kind. I don't know what you're talking about because no one has ever been kind to me. I didn't experience it in my home. Definitely wasn't at residential school. All I know how to do is this, and she went into lateral violence. That's all I know. So I think you guys need to talk about what being kind looks like because I don't know what that is. And when he shared that, I was just like, first of all, it shattered my heart.
Yeah.
That someone would feel that they never experienced kindness before. And I realized, right out of the gates, we realized that instead of, really dwelling on that, the negative part of it, we also want to emphasize the kindness. And, that really is a rallying call to say, let's be who we really are, and behave in ways that are reflective of our ancestors and who it is we want to be. So all of that really, I think, motivates me and compels me. And it's those experiences, in the communities where, people, you see it, you can see people kind of in that transformative process. It doesn't happen overnight, obviously, but it's very, very meaningful and important. And that's why, I kind of see myself, like the rest of my, whatever it is I'm going to do in my life or however long I'll be here, I see myself being a part of this transform movement.
Well, it's so needed for sure. No, without a doubt, it's so needed in all of our communities.
Yeah. Totally.
So the final question is, can you offer some advice or encouragement to any Indigenous young women today that might be struggling, who might be scared to take the next step in their life, who might have some struggles that they need to overcome, like any amount of advice or encouragement?
Yes. So this is a thing that's taken me my whole life to learn how to do. And, a big part of it came through, like working with the lateral violence and the lateral kindness movement and workshops. But you can't let what other people think of you or the lateral violence take you down and detract you because that, is someone else's pain. It's their pain and you don't own it. So I often when I'm talking to young people, I'm like, learn how to do this now and you will save yourself so much, pain, frustration, and like sabotage and questioning yourself and, trying to please everybody all the time. Cause I think that's what people who have experienced a lot of trauma do too, is like trying to make everyone else happy, trying to accommodate everyone else. That's not what it's about, as long as you are doing something good, it aligns with your values and your Indigenous values, you got to keep on trucking, keep on doing what you do. And along with that, like find your circle, right? Like find your people that will support you, hold you up, love you unconditionally, and encourage you, and never mind about all of those, hecklers, people out in the stands. Like we often use the analogy of being out there in the arena. So when you're doing really important things, hard things, you are in the arena, in the middle of the arena. And a lot of people aren't, they're out there hiding way out in the, in the periphery, out there in the stands, but those are the loudest critical voices, right? Like, I'm not going to get in there with you and try to fix it, but I'm going to just, be out here and throw tomatoes at you. So I would tell, all of you beautiful, strong young women, learn how to shut those voices off. Unless it is somebody who clearly, is coming forward with, advice or feedback that is from a place of, I'm in here with you. I'm also getting my ass kicked. And I love you. And I'm, I just want us to do this well, or this to be the best it can. And you'll know, you know what I mean? Like, and who those people are who are in your circle, and who the ones who are trying to hurt you. right?
I
Just
think
because,
it's important to have the circle, but it's also important to know that there's times where you will just be alone. Like I've gone through voids in my life where I've had to like leave friend groups that were not serving me, that were not anywhere near as empowering as they could have been or should have been. And
yeah,
just like being in that void of being alone, and like I spent years actually in a void in between, the right circle.
right,
And that strength that you get from knowing that you can manage on your own, and choosing your own growth over being stuck,
right,
choosing your own well-being over just being with people for the sake of being in somebody else's company. Like I think that because we're such social creatures, women especially will hold on to friendships longer than they should, even, stay in toxic relationships longer than they should. So find your circle, but if you don't have a circle, don't be scared to be alone. Like that, it's a powerful place to
true.
grow who you are in that void time.
Yeah, absolutely. And and knowing the difference, you know what I mean, is I think it's a really fundamental thing because, I remember, just always wanting to make everyone else and their dog happy, and
Mm-hmm.
my needs being at the very bottom.
Yeah.
Like my
Mm-hmm.
response to trauma was definitely fawning, where it was like I concede everything about myself just to avoid you
Yeah.
getting angry, or
Yeah.
um, I guess, trying to divert any type of lateral violence or emotional violence that could happen. So
Mm-hmm.
how I did that was to either become invisible or just, concede all of my needs. And that's not
Mm-hmm.
healthy, right? Like that's not. So
No.
you're right. You have to really know, who are the people in your circle, that
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really have your back. And if they don't, then it's time to, walk away from that,
Yeah.
because you won't be able to do anything if you're just constantly in that negative space, and
Mm-hmm.
hurt space. Because a lot of people do kind of, get in there and start hurting you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is not cool.
Yeah. So why don't we just end on this note? You have raised a very strong, empowered, cultural young woman. Just tell us about Megan a bit.
Okay. Yes, my daughter Megan Guna Jensen. She is definitely kind of, finding her way and her path. She's an artist. She just recently graduated from Emily Carr, and so she's been, doing painting, and found a way to kind of like meld, oil painting in with form line, really finding her voice. And she's very, very, very strong. And recently, worked on a film on one of our legends, and I'm sure you saw it, where she did a huge art installation on a lake with
It's
snowshoes.
incredible. I'm gonna find the link and I'll post it in the comments on the speed, because it's such a cool video. I love it.
Yes, great. And so, I mean, Megan really is a product of my mom, my sister Shirley, who's also another really amazing,
Mhm.
accomplished woman. All of my friends, my friend group, the women close around, and just having a lot of support, from people like yourself and other, older women that are really, seeing, and find, I guess, just having the ability to truly encourage and hold them up, and give them good advice and give them space to be
Mhm.
able to really grow and learn and do their thing, make their mark in this world. So my mom and her sisters really are so responsible for, like just the strength in Megan and her knowledge,
Mhm.
her understanding of who she is and where she stands in this world. And her dad too, David,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome father figure.
So if people want to connect with you for your workshops, I've posted the link to the email there. You also do performances across Canada with your group, the Dakhká Khwáan Dancers. She's got CDs and everything. And I also wanted to mention these lovely earrings that I'm wearing right now are Marilyn's creation, and I bought them through the Unorthodox Yukon store. You can follow them on Instagram to see when she has new releases. These are just the most gorgeous. I wear these ones all the time.
Oh,
So
it's
yeah,
so
multi-talented. I'm just so thrilled that you joined me today. It was awesome.
well, thank you so much
And
for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Mhm.
yeah, okay, that was fun.
Mhm.
So yeah, hopefully this podcast gets shared far and wide, and people get to see more of your work because you're doing incredible things. And I can't wait for my chance to get to do one of your workshops.
Yes. Oh, that'll be great. That'll be great. We'd really, really, really love to have you in there and, to
Yeah,
participate and offer your wisdom and, voice as well would be great.
awesome. Okay, thanks. Thanks for
All
tuning in,
right. Thank
everyone.
you. Sue
Bye.
Kwasitin. Bye.